I've been in cars almost my whole life, and for the last 10 or so years, I've been a professional driving instructor. So I have a unique perspective to offer on why new cars are no longer worth buying. First on the list is mechanical reliability. A lot of companies are now making the small turbo engines due to a lot of the emissions regulations, and you can get better fuel economy if you make a teeny tiny turbo engine and you really boost the turbo so it puts out lots and lots of power for a small package, but then, yeah, it doesn't last as long. So I don't like that. I want them to last a little bit longer. Let's face it, if your small turbo engine gets better fuel economy, but it takes 3 of them in replacement succession to account for one gas guzzling, say, V6 engine, did you really save anything? And that might not just be 3 engines, that might be 3 whole cars. So does that save anything in the long run? Then, of course, we have poorly made engines. Alfa Romeo, possibly, but even good, quote, good car companies. Toyota recently had a problem with some of their V8 engines. And Toyota V8s are like super reliable traditionally, but they made a mistake in manufacturing on some of those engines in 22 and 23, and now they're replacing them at very high expense. At least Toyota's replacing them. But there are a lot of other engines out there that just aren't the build quality that they need to be anymore. Then we have the transmissions. You have the manual transmission, which lasts a very, very long time. Now, it does have a clutch, and that is a wear part, and that does need to be replaced, every 60 or 100,000 miles probably, depending on how you drive in your car and that type of thing. You might get a little more out of it, possibly, if you drive properly or don't use it very much. Automatic transmissions. The traditional automatic transmission can last a very, very long time. They've had a long time to figure out how to make those things last, and they really did a good job. They can last for hundreds of thousands of miles without any major overhaul. So traditional automatic transmissions are great. But now they're putting continuously variable transmissions in the cars. Most have a belt in them. It's a metal belt that goes between sheaves that vary the size, and that gets your transmission different gear ratios. But that belt and that system can wear out prematurely if you don't do proper maintenance. And sometimes proper maintenance means changing the transmission oil more often than the manufacturer recommends. You can also use different types of oil. AMSOIL claims to have the CVT transmission oil that makes it last a lot longer. Yeah, I'd have to see independent tests on that to verify, but you can make them last a long time if you change the transmission oil often enough, but generally people don't do that. And then they generally throw away the car because it just costs too expensive to replace that transmission by the time it wears out at, around 60 or 100,000 miles. And then in Europe, and probably more in Europe than in the United States here, but they have that wet belt where the accessory belt is a rubber belt, like in a lot of cars, or maybe it's a timing belt, but they put it in oil, and it's a rubber belt. Okay, you don't put rubber belts in oil. Those things have caused all kinds of problems. Manufacturers, I've been told or I've seen, are starting to take those out of cars and put timing chains in instead. But my gosh, a belt with oil, I mean, come on. Whoever thought that was a good idea? But anyway, it adds to the lack of mechanical reliability in some modern cars. Number 2, we have electronic reliability. There are all kinds of electronics in the car. Way too many electronics in a lot of cases. Very difficult to diagnose, very difficult to find the problem. You have to take it to a proper mechanic that can diagnose the problem. And there are few and far between, the ones that know enough to actually diagnose those problems. The other thing you have is a touch screen in a lot of the modern cars. Not only is that an ergonomic nightmare and a distraction, but when those things go bad, it's very expensive to replace them. They're equivalent to your tablet. And you say, oh yeah, but my tablet was only, $500 or something, or $700. Okay, but it's a custom built one with a custom face and a custom connections and all that stuff. Plus, they have to take the whole dash part probably to replace the thing. So it's going to cost you $2,000, $3,000 or more dollars or more to replace that if it ever goes bad. And they do go bad. It gets really cold in some climates, and that's hard on those electronic systems. And if they need to be replaced, very, very expensive to replace those things. Well, you've got a little taste now of what I'm talking about. I want you to listen to the rest of the video, but also put in the comments the one thing that I mentioned today that would probably prevent you from buying one of these modern cars. Let's get a lot of these comments in there, and hopefully the manufacturers might notice it and get an idea of these things that are causing us not to buy those new cars. They're still interested in selling new cars. And if as consumers we can get enough information and enough message to those manufacturers, they'll fight the government regulators and other things on our behalf to change things so that we can buy the cars that we want. Also, please subscribe to this channel so you can get more informative and interesting videos. I would really appreciate it. Number 3, you are not the customer. Yeah, in the United States at least, the dealer is the customer. Car manufacturers kind of figured this out quite a while ago, and it's just starting to filter through. The consequences are just starting to filter through. You're not the customer. They're no longer interested in pleasing you or building cars for you. They're building cars for dealers, because dealers are the ones that they sell the cars to in the United States. They don't sell a car to you, they sell it to the dealer. And the dealer buys ones they think they can sell. And yeah, it might not be your opinion. It might not be ones that you would choose. So what consequences do we get from that? A lot of times you have the inability to buy lower spec cars. You might look online and find out that there's a car you can get really low specs on and not all these extra bells and whistles and all that stuff, but you can't actually buy it. You go to the dealer, they don't have any on the lot, and you ask to order it, and you can't order it. Okay, so that's an issue. It used to be an ability to buy below the retail price. That's starting to change now. You can now sometimes buy below the retail price, but boy, that's just at the dealer's whim. And that's because they have extra inventory right now. A couple of years ago, you couldn't buy below retail price, and you didn't have any choice. A lot of times you have an inability to choose the car color that you'd like to get. What do you mean? You don't want a black, gray, silver, or maybe a white car. That might be available. Or wait, the white might only be available for special order to fleet buyers. Yeah, you might not even get the white. And you say, oh, but they have a red. Yeah, but it's so dark it looks like brown. And, you know, other colors, they might have one extra fancy color that is just crazy bad. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get that. So where are the bright red cars, the yellow cars, the nice bright royal blue cars and stuff like that? In a lot of these car manufacturers, you can't even order a color like that anymore. And yeah, you can paint it yourself or get a wrap on your car, oh, for an extra thousands and thousands of dollars. But the car companies just aren't making exciting colors anymore. In the past, you could buy cars of, you know, a dozen different colors for one car model. And you could get like two-tone, like a stripe down the middle with a different color from the other two. And you could pick whatever color you wanted. Yeah, no longer. The car dealers want the basic black car or gray because it's a neutral color and they feel they can sell that to anybody. But that's not exciting. And again, sometimes you can't even order a fun color anymore. Because of all this, consumers now have an inability to signal the manufacturer on what they actually want. In the past, the manufacturer could see, oh, well, the dealer is stocking these particular cars, but we got so many people special ordering this particular model in this particular configuration or this type of color. We need to advise our dealers that they need to start stocking more of these things. That signal is no longer getting to the car manufacturers. They don't care anymore, it seems. The signal for the consumer to get their choice into the manufacturer, and so they build the cars that we want to buy, is no longer getting to the manufacturer. It's like they're deaf. They don't hear what us consumers are saying. Number 4, you are not the customer, part 2. You see, the fuel economy regulators are the customer. Yeah, they're not building cars for you. You might not care that it has a V6 engine. It has enough power for you. And like in my case, I have a V6 SUV and it doesn't get good gas mileage, but I put on probably about 5,000 miles a year. Very low mileage. I'm not really worried about the fuel economy of my particular vehicle, and I'm not worried about it hurting the environment. But they're taking away those choices. Those fuel economy standards in the United States here have created those unreliable engines that we talked about in many different ways, not just with the turbo, but in a lot of different ways they've created unreliable engines. They've also created a system where you can't buy, say, small pickups anymore because it just doesn't pay. If they make a small pickup with a V6 engine or a small SUV with a V6 engine like the one that I have, the auto manufacturers have to pay huge penalties to the environmental protection people. And it's just not worth it for them to do it anymore. I'm surprised that Ford came out with the Maverick, that small pickup truck. They managed to get that by, but they're probably losing money on that. They want to build the big, huge, giant pickup trucks because the bigger it is, the less stringent the fuel economy standards are. That's why we have gigantic, oversized pickup trucks nowadays instead of sensible ones that a lot of people want to buy, or smaller pickup trucks. And you might say, oh yeah, but I got my Chevrolet Colorado or something like that. That's a full-size pickup, folks. It's bigger than those old, smaller pickups that we got, like the Ford Ranger and stuff like that. The original Ford Ranger, they were a lot smaller pickup trucks. You just can't buy those anymore because they just can't afford to make them because of the fuel economy regulations. So that's causing problems. They should just throw out the fuel economy regulations, let the market shuffle everything out, and honestly, we'd end up with really good cars and actually very fuel efficient cars in a lot of cases. Also, that goes along with that is the EV mandates that hopefully will go by the wayside in a little bit, but those EV mandates are causing lots of problems. We'll get into a little bit more on that later. You are not the customer, part 3. Yeah, safety regulators are the customer. Now we had the original safety items: brakes, tires, steering wheel, and a good brain. Those were the original safety features. Then we added things like seat belts and airbags and anti-lock brakes. Now all cars in the US have to have electronic stability control. It uses the anti-lock braking system to help prevent you from skidding. I've seen that work. I am a driving instructor, remember. I have seen it work, and I've seen where that actually probably can cause a problem because people don't understand it and they overreact. At least new drivers do, and I suspect a lot of older drivers do too, because really people just don't understand what's going on when it starts doing things for you. Also, going along with the lack of education with modern drivers is emergency brake assist. They put that in now too. See, when you press the brake in an emergency, you're supposed to press it really, really hard. And I talked about that in another video. But a lot of people don't do that and they end up causing a crash. So now they have emergency brake assist, where you press the brake, kind of hard, but the system detects that, oh, you're in an emergency, and it brakes extra hard for you, even if you didn't intend to do that. Then there's some new active safety features, meaning they intervene and do things for you. And I'm going to read the list because, oh my gosh, I can't memorize this whole stuff. So newer ones: blind spot warning, lane departure warning, forward collision warning, rear cross traffic warning, pedestrian detection, traffic sign recognition, and night vision. Yeah, all these things, again, the average driver is not going to understand. It might be beeping and they got to look, and it's more distracting. They might have gotten into that situation because they're already distracted. They're on their cell phone or they're distracted in some other way, and then they're more distracted. I'm not sure it actually does what the car makers think it does or what the safety regulators think it does in every situation. In the exact situation they tested in, it probably works. But in the real world, I'm not sure it works successfully. Then we have active safety features. Again, I'm going to read from a list of the active safety features they have in a lot of the modern cars. Lane keeping assist and lane centering assist. where the car actually steers you into your lane or prevents you from steering out of your lane. I live in Minnesota. When it snows, sometimes you have to go out of the lane because there's an ice patch. Sometimes you have to steer out of the lane because there's snow every place else and everybody else has driven out of the lane to do that. You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to do that without something bleeping at you or trying to steer you back. I had a student a couple of years ago who couldn't stay centered in her lane. She was all over the place. And I figured out why. She had a car with the lane centering assist that she had been practicing on a lot. She never learned how to stay centered in her lane. She would steer and the car would steer back for her, and she was just doing all kinds of stuff with the steering wheel. She couldn't stay centered in her lane without that centering assist. So she couldn't drive an average car. Let's continue. Automatic emergency braking and rear automatic emergency braking. So not just helping you brake if you don't press the brake pedal hard enough, but braking for you if it detects there's something in the way and you have to, stop the car. And some of this has caused problems with cars stopping for no reason. Tesla's had a lot of those things happening where the Tesla car just stops, boom, for no reason, or at least no visible reason. There's certainly nothing a driver would actually stop for. These systems can work in exactly the scenario that they test them in, up to about 30 miles an hour. You go out of that testing regime and they don't work, or they can work at unexpected times. Now, the other problem with these active safety systems, the automatic emergency braking and the lane keeping assist where it steers for you and stuff like that, is these systems can malfunction, but they can also be hacked. Now, if they do, your car could brake or steer and cause a crash. And I suspect this has happened. Certainly, cars can be hacked. They've proven that a bunch of times, and people haven't really experimented with that. We haven't seen that in the wild too much, but they can be hacked where the car could just steer you off the road and crash you into a tree, for example. It can be done. I don't think it has been done, but it can be done. These cars aren't that secure. Could the automatic emergency braking also be a security concern? Say there's a team of carjackers and you're driving down the street and you just drive right past them. They're not going to walk in front of the car. They're worried about getting hit, especially with an alert driver and that type of thing, unless they know you have automatic emergency braking. Then they can just walk right in front of the car stops, and their buddy gets up to the front window and points a gun in your face and carjacks your car. I don't know that criminals have figured that out yet, and yeah, I'm not under any illusion that I'm, telling them something they can't figure out on their own, but yeah, that's a real safety concern in some areas. Sometimes you have to just be able to drive straight through a particular dangerous spot, but that emergency braking, oh yeah, just have one person walk out in front of the car will stop for them once, the automatic emergency braking becomes so prevalent, and that just stops the car and they carjack the car. So, safety concern. They have active parking assist now. Some cars will just park by themselves. You just press the button and they park the car. Again, drivers should have those skills. Drivers should be able to do that on their own and determine if the parking spot's suitable for their size of car. So they should be able to do that on their own. Again, whenever you have some system in there that it can steer and, move the car on its own, there's a potential for it being hacked or for it malfunctioning and doing things that you don't want it to do. Then we have automatic headlights, which I just absolutely can't stand. I think they should be banned completely. They turn on when it gets dark. You say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, in Minnesota here, you're required to have headlights on when it rains or snows or any, bad weather conditions like that. But a lot of times it's really bright outside when it's raining or snowing, and the automatic system won't turn the headlights on. And people just get used to it and they just figure, oh, it's automatic, it'll turn on its own. Trust me, a lot of people do that. And they don't think about that because they can't understand the headlights. Then we have the other system that, technically called automatic, that I think should be on every car, where it's just a timer. You shut the car off, you take the key out, you lock the door, and it automatically shuts the headlights off for you. That should be standard on every car because it's my opinion that you should drive with headlights on all the time, day or night, regardless of the conditions. And we should just get people into that. Again, train the people. Don't make the car do things for you. Train the people instead of, doing the car and putting in complex systems that not everybody will understand. The designers understand this and understand how they intended to use it. But trust me, the average person does not understand how to use these systems and does not understand what they're doing for them. And they don't want to understand. They don't want to take the time to learn it. Then we have adaptive headlights that you turn on the high beams when they think a car is not coming and then turn them off, if a car is coming. I'm kind of ambivalent on that one. Might be good if it works every time. Again, is it going to work every time? I don't know. Is it really that hard? On my car, I just go like this with the little lever and I can switch the high beams on or off. It's not that hard to do. And again, that puts the onus on the driver. So the driver has to pay attention and think about what they're doing. That creates a more active and safe driver. And remember, the driver is the most important safety item in the vehicle. And then they do have some night vision on some cars. That's not a bad idea, but it does take your eyes off the road unless they have a head-up display with the night vision. But most of the night vision, you have to look over here at the console display to see the night vision, which is really bad because you're thinking, oh, I can't see and I'm going a little bit too fast for my headlights. Oh, but I can see on the night vision, so I'm going to drive like this. Nah, that's not such a good idea. Unless it's a heads-up display, like I said, I'm not sure that's the best idea. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to see more and how that actually works and whether or not that actually helps. I suspect it doesn't actually help because by the time you see the deer on the night vision thing, you're probably already too fast and you're going to hit it. So yeah, I'm not sure that's that much of a help. Finally, with active safety features, we have driver attention monitoring or driver impairment monitoring. This is a system in the car that detects if you're inattentive or you're impaired. And they're going to be standard on all cars in the, next model year, the model year after that. So that's an invasion of privacy because the way that they're going to do this, probably, is they're going to have a camera facing the driver. They're going to have a microphone recording what's going on in the car. And they're going to actively monitor that with probably an AI system or something like that. The car probably doesn't have enough processing power to do all that AI stuff, so they're probably going to send that information someplace else to do the processing. And they say it's just going to be on a loop and they won't save the stuff. But yeah, the information's out there and it's outside of your car and you've lost that information. Not to mention it's an invasion of privacy. I agree that if you have been convicted of a drunk driving offense and you have agreed that to get your license back, you're going to have a breathalyzer in the car where you have to blow into it to start your car and to drive your car, that's fine. That's a good system. I think that will help some of these people, maybe a recovering alcoholic, to keep themselves on the straight and narrow and to continue on with their treatment program to help them get off of that drug and get back into more responsible behavior. But don't make all of us have that kind of system in our car, because that's the other thing they could do with this particular law in the United States is they could have a breathalyzer you got to blow into as if you were a drunk driver. In other words, guilty until proven innocent. I think that they should let people be and keep the privacy in your own car. That information getting sent out, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, is a huge issue. Number 6, you are not the customer. Oh, it's part 4 now. So who is the customer? I got a list here: government, advertisers, and insurance companies. Yeah, remember I said that that camera faces the driver, or will be? Yeah, even before that, the government and the insurance companies and the advertisers can collect information from your car. Already, most new cars come with a system that monitors everything that you do with the car: the speed, how you brake, how you steer, and whether or not that's, excessive and that type of thing. Some of them also monitor the driver. The car companies have been selling this information to third-party information brokers. And those information brokers sell the data to, for example, the government or the insurance companies. Now, the insurance companies take that and raise your insurance rates. You wonder, why did my insurance rate go up? I bought a new car and it went a certain amount, but then it went up really high. Don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities, but it could be that they are getting information from your car and you hit the brakes a little too hard one time, or you steered a little too quickly, or you drove in an area where there's lots of heavy traffic or lots of carjackings or something like that, because they track where you are with the GPS or the cell system. And they sent that back to the manufacturer, who sold it to an information broker, who sold it to your insurance company, and then your insurance goes up. So that monitoring of your system, that invasion of privacy, that is a real issue. And in the United States here at least, they've considered that legal. There's no law against that right now. It's even worse than that. Everybody likes to have the Apple CarPlay, Android Play, or whatever. You connect your phone to the car and you get all this entertainment stuff because it's all through your phone, and you get all this convenience. You can make phone calls and all that stuff. Oh, but you see, when you connect your phone to the car, the auto manufacturer, and it's in all the agreements, if you read down through page 482 in the little teeny fine print or something of the agreement that you signed, and it says that they have a right to collect all that information from that cell phone. Literally, they download all your contacts, they download all your texts, they download all your photos. And again, they sell this to information brokers who sell it to other people. So again, an invasion of privacy. And in the United States, there's been several lawsuits, and they have come across as the car company has a right to do that. You signed that agreement. Never mind that you didn't know that was in the agreement. I mean, come on. But yeah, you signed that agreement. So this is an issue with modern cars. My car, I've never connected my cell phone to my car. It is possible, but it's an old car. It might be tracking where I drive. I don't know. Most cars do, but I never signed my cell phone. I never signed anything. So it's probably tracking the car for the original owner. And that brings up another problem. There was a guy in Europe, and I'm not sure where, I saw it online somewhere, but he sold his Volvo car. And he realized he didn't, do the stuff to get the system, transferred over to the other person or whatever. So he wondered if he could see. So he activated the camera. There's an in-car camera, I guess. He activated it. He could record everything that was happening in that car, even though he didn't still own it, because his cell phone was still connected to that system. And the car has essentially a cell phone built into it. But he could monitor that, where it went, and he could plot exactly where his car was. But it wasn't his car anymore because he sold it. So, this is a privacy issue. And car companies just don't even the manufacturers don't want you to know, but the salesmen don't have any clue that their cars are doing these things and have this kind of issue. Number 7 is the cost to repair all of this stuff. You see those safety features that we were talking about, that automatic emergency braking, the blind spot detection system, and all those other things. They require sensors. There might be radar in the car. There might be LiDAR. There might be cameras in the car all the way around that sense all these things and, adjust things or do things. Even things like adaptive cruise control depend on radar being there to do that adaptive cruise control thing. But all of those systems cost a lot of money. You get in a little teeny crash and you wreck that bumper, well, that probably wrecked that radar system, and so now it has to be replaced, but it also has to be recalibrated. And if it broke some of the other sensors, they all have to be replaced, and they're not terribly expensive, but they have to be recalibrated, and that's a lot of labor and costs run up. And that's part of the reason these new cars cost a lot to repair when they get in a small crash, because all those sensors all the way around the car can cost a lot of money to not only replace, but recalibrate. It adds complexity to the car. For all these reasons, I will not be buying one of these modern cars anytime soon. I'm going to avoid it as long as possible, try to keep my car in good condition.